Welcome back to my modern homestead. If you don't already know, my name is Janet. I'm so happy you're here today. Y'all, look at this. This is just bananas. I have 4 of these bags of carrots. And y'all, yes, my family loves carrots. But the last week and the week before, I was helping at our church youth camp, and for some reason, the last 2 years, we've always gotten carrots, but we don't actually cook carrots. So the person who's over the kitchen, she gives them to me because she knows I can. Now, last year, I had medallions, and they were frozen. If you haven't seen that video, it worked. We are actually still eating some of those carrots. We have a few left, but I've got to get these carrots canned so that they don't go bad. And I'm going to tell you how I'm doing it because I'm being a slight rebel today. Some things I will rebel on, and this is one of them because I've always done it. I do this with my green beans and my carrots. I'm going to get these carrots into my quart jars. I have them already here, and I've got my canner on my stove. Now, that is not turned on. That is just water that's sitting there waiting. And that's the way I do this. I do everything at room temperature. Well, my carrots aren't, but everything's going to come up to temperature together and be hot all at the same time. So I don't really worry too much about it getting to the right temperature. So anyway, what do you say we get these packed into the jars, because I'm not going to make this a long video because you've all seen me can carrots. There's no big secret to that. Before I get started though, I will say, oh, canning people, just get me. Hold on. I took some carrots to the fair one year. I've actually taken them several years. But the last year I took them, they disqualified my carrots because I canned these baby carrots. And according to the UGA extension, blah, 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 whoever does all that, they say you can't can baby carrots. But you guys, my ball book that I've always used since I've been canning, it's for baby carrots. It gives you direct instructions for the baby carrots. I looked it up to make sure because I was like, how dare these people tell me I can't can baby carrots? I've always canned baby carrots. That's all I've ever done till last year. So anyway, I'll tell you that. Do what you will with that information. I can baby carrots. And they're not thick baby carrots. They are just regular sized baby carrots. But UGA says you can only can the medallions. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to cut the bag open. These have been sitting out of the refrigerator for probably an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, just as I got things ready. I've got so much to do, y'all. I've got peaches over here waiting. My husband went and bought them for me Saturday, and they weren't ripe, but they're ripe now. They smell nice and peachy, so they're ready to go. And what I'm going to do is just fill these up to about an inch headspace. That's one thing I need to go back and check. I did not check my headspace on these. I always forget. But, yeah, so we've got those. And I've got squash here. You can kind of see over here in the corner from the garden. I've got to get it canned up. I'm going to go look at my squash bushes, though, because it's getting hot here. They look puny. So if they're not looking too good, I might just freeze that squash instead of taking the effort to can it. I just shake these down, not too much. I don't want to pack too tight. And I'll do that for all the jars. Look at this. These jars are taller. I believe these are older. Yep, they don't even have their marking on them. But the old pint jars are larger than the new pint jars. I'm going to save these to last so we can stick those on top. So that I'm going to have 2 layers in the canner. And I don't want tall and shorter jars mixed on the bottom and make the top wobbly and lopsided. But anyway, what I'm going to do is just finish these and put in a teaspoon of salt into each jar. Okay, we are on the last jar. Now I do still have one more bag in the refrigerator. I only took out 3 because I knew that was just about what I needed to do these carrots. I can tell I've been canning a while because I was just about right. We used almost the whole 3 bags. And we do want to leave just about an inch of head space. When I do carrots this way, I do go over a little bit because they're not hot and they are going to shrink up some. So there's that. Now I have some coarse or just some kosher salt. You want to use kosher or a canning salt that's non-iodized so that your brine is not cloudy. Because regular salt has anti-caking agents in it and the iodine, and it will leave you with a product that's not the greatest. Won't hurt you, but it just doesn't look the greatest. So I'm just going to put a teaspoon of salt in each jar. And hey, if you don't want salt, you do not have to use it. It is not required for safe canning this way, because we're going to be pressure canning these. Let's just finish these up and I'll be right back. There we go. Last teaspoon. And look, that's all I had left in my bowl. Okay. Now for this part, all I use is just plain tap water. Now, if you don't have really good water coming into your house, if it's got a lot of minerals or whatnot, you might want to use purified water or spring water that you get from a store. But we have a whole home filtration system on ours, and we have reverse osmosis. But this is just my tap water. It's cold water because I want everything to start out as close to the same temperature as possible. So we're just going to fill these up to 1 inch head space. And I've shown you before, if you fill slowly, you'll have less air bubbles and air pockets because the water has time to get into all the nooks and crannies. But if you don't do that, well, even if you do that, you want to get out as many air bubbles as you can. And I will usually run a wooden spoon around the edges and down the middle of my vegetables to check for any air pockets. And a lot of times that will make your water level go down because you fill in those air pockets. And if that happens, you just come back and fill it back up to the correct head space. Now, sometimes I will forget to debubble, so what I do is I just take my jar and just tilt it a little and tap, and usually that will release any air bubbles that are in there. So that's just one little tip, but if you can remember, do it the right way. And I just take, just like I said, a wooden spoon, a plastic spoon, something with a flat edge. You don't want to use your knife and score the inside of the jar because that increases your chances for cracking. Just like that. And just like I said, the water level did decrease. It dropped it down. So I'm going to get some more water and finish filling up these jars just like this, and we'll be right back. All right, everything is debubbled and head space adjusted. Now all we want to do is wipe the rim of the jars to make sure there's nothing on the jar that would keep it from sealing. Even just a little grain of salt will keep a jar from sealing. So you want to be very careful and make sure you've got everything off. And this gives you a good chance to check the edge of the jar really well to make sure there aren't any chips or cracks, but you don't want that either, because that could cause a total jar failure. Have the whole jar crack in the canner at the worst, and at the least just have a jar that doesn't seal. Okay, now in here I've had my lids sitting in water. I've already washed them. Now I did use hot water on this because the instructions on the 4 jar lids advise that you actually boil these. I've never boiled mine. In fact, I didn't even know that till today. A piece of paper fell out of the box and I read it. But I do always wash them in hot water, and today, just for the sake of it, I just stuck them in hot water. But what I'm going to do right now is just drain the water off of the lids and get them onto the jars. Alrighty. Now these are my 4 jar lids. I absolutely love the 4 jar lids. They were gifted to me and they have been so nice to work with. And what I like to do is just do it finger tight. That's what you're supposed to do. But I like to line up the word on the lid with the word on the front of the jar. That's just a preference. You don't have to do that. That's what I like to do. So that's how we do it. If this is your first time here, let me show you how I figure out finger tight. And normally when I'm canning and I'm at this stage of putting things in jars, I like to have my things on a towel, just a dish towel. And that way when I put my lid onto the jar and I start tightening, when I'm tightening and the jar starts turning, it's finger tight. You can make sure that it's not too loose. Every now and then it will be, but most of the time if you're pushing down on that lid when you're turning the ring, it's going to be finger tight. Just like so. I do push down just to give it a little bit of pressure, and when the jar turns, finger tight, and you can stop. All right, let's get all of these done. All righty, we got all of them in the jars. I got the lids and all on. So let's put these into the canner. Now I'm using my All-American 931, and the instructions in my book say to start with 2.5 to 3 inches of water in the bottom of the canner before you ever put the jars in there. And nowhere in that does that say to take any of that water out. That amount of water is required to get the correct pressure inside the canner. And because it didn't say to take any out, I'm not taking any out. So let's just get the jars in here. Make sure you have your rack in the bottom of your canner so that your jars don't break. 7 on the bottom. We're going to put in our next rack. Make sure it's nice and level. Sometimes you have to scoot the jars around a little bit. There we go. And voila. Our second layer is done. I'm going to go ahead and turn the eye on to a medium high and put the lid on. I have an arrow here. It lines up with the notch here. Just turn it. And when that arrow and that notch are lined up, you are good to go. You just check and make sure you don't have a lot of space in this opening. Let me see if I can bring it down and show you. Pardon my canner. It's very well used. But you want to make sure this space in here that you don't have a wide space on one side and a narrow opening or narrow space on the other side. Get them as even as possible and lock your canner down. Now when I lock down my canner, I put the wing nuts, let's see, just a little bit. I put the wing nuts on loosely and then check the space one more time before I actually lock everything down. And when you do this, it's best to do opposite. This one and this one, they're opposite of each other. The front is a little higher, so I'm going to tighten it down first and then tighten up the back one. Okay, there we go. And that's it. Now, everything will come up to temperature together. And when it's hot enough inside and it starts building pressure, steam will start coming out of this valve, and that's what you want. When steam starts coming out of this valve, whether you can hear it or feel it or see it, that counts. It doesn't have to be billowing out like a smokestack. And you don't want it just spurting out. You want a good steady stream. And once it starts doing that, time it for 10 minutes and let it vent before you put the weight on. Well, y'all, I finished up jarring up that last bag that I was working on, plus the one bag that was still in my refrigerator. And I came up with, let's see, there's 6 quarts of carrots. And I didn't want to wait on this great big one to finish canning, then have to let it cool and then get the hot water out and put new water. I didn't want to do all that. So I pulled out my old faithful, my very first canner that I canned with for years. Dear Lord, please bless her. Let her do what she needs to do. I haven't used this thing. I might have used it once since we've moved here, but I loved this canner. It was my 16-quart Presto. Y'all, if you go to the store and that's all you can get, don't sweat it. Yes, I like the way the other one cans better, but there is nothing wrong with this Presto or one that you can find. Now, the weight is a little different. It's a jiggler weight. I actually love this weight better than the one on this one. So let me get the jars in here and show you how to do it. Okay, there we go. Got our jars in. Now, on this canner, it calls for 3 quarts of water in the bottom of it before you do anything. So I used my quart jar, put 3 quarts of water in there, got my jars in here, and these jars aren't quite as full of carrots as the other jars, and that's not a problem. So let's get the lid on this canner. And this one also has an arrow here, and you line it up with the arrow on the handle here and just turn it, and that locks it. When you have the handle on the top and the handle on the bottom lined up, it's good to go. So we're going to turn this one on to a medium high, and we're going to vent, excuse me, we're going to vent this one. Now this one used to scare me because sometimes this would pop up and the little pressure thing here would pop up before it was done venting. And that's okay. That's just the way it's made. And we're going to do 10 pounds of pressure on this one. This one by itself is 5, 10 with one weight. If you need 15 pounds of pressure, you would use the other one. So that's all there is to this one. We'll just wait, and I won't have to can all day just to get the carrots done. Okay, this canner has a steady stream of steam coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and set one timer for 10 minutes for this one. This one is almost ready to start steaming. It's not quite there yet. It had this little puffs of steam that come up, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a steady stream. So once this one has vented for 10 minutes, we'll get the weight on. Okay, we are there. It didn't take but a minute, literally. So we're going to set the other timer for 10 minutes. And when it goes off, we'll get the weight on this canner. Okay, the timer just went off for this canner. And we're going to put the weight on for the 10 pounds of pressure. That's for my altitude. Yours may require more. So make sure you check your altitude and your times and pressures. Okay, now let's put the weight on. Again, we're going to use one weight for 10 pounds pressure. And I forgot to tell you, before you use this lid, turn it over and make sure you can see light through the underside and top side of this vent. Okay, and that's all we do. And when this starts rocking, then we'll start timing for 30 minutes. And when it starts rocking, we want a slow, gentle rock. We don't want it going crazy. And there was something else I wanted to tell you, and I can't remember. Oh, if you're using a dial gauge, you're not going to necessarily come to 10 pounds pressure. If you're using a dial, it's going to be 11 pounds PSI is what you're going for on the dial. 10 pounds pressure for the jiggler. Okay, we'll be back. When you're using this type of pressure canner, this little metal piece, it's going to pop up before this starts rocking. And it's supposed to do that. That's the way it's designed. So don't get nervous if you hear steam or whatnot coming out of there. That's the way it's supposed to be. And there it goes. Now it will start building pressure to where this will start rocking. Okay, our large canner is just about to pressure. When it gets there, this is going to start moving, and then we'll set the timer. This one's still getting there. I just really like the way this one comes up to temperature, and it's quick, it's quiet, and it holds the temperature much better. This one, it's always scary. It's just so loud and noisy. But you can see it's about, oh, there, it started rocking before this one. I'm going to give it just a second before I set the timer on it. A lot of times when it first starts rocking and starts moving, it'll stop after a second or two. So you want to make sure it's really going to keep rocking before you set the timer. If you don't, you'll just have to start over. And it doesn't have to rock much harder than that. Now this one will keep at a steady rock. This one will start and stop. This one you want to do a steady rock. This one you want pauses between the jiggles. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for this one. I'm going to bump the temp down just a hair. You don't want it, you don't want an angry rock, and you don't want it going crazy, just a gentle rock. Well, there we go. We'll set the timer for it too. Okay, I have been sitting here talking to you for about 4 minutes. The timer for this canner has gone off and I've turned it off, and we don't do anything to it until this metal tab goes down. When that tab goes down, I will let it sit for about 5 minutes. Then I will take off the rocking weight and I'll wait another 5 minutes. Then I will loosen the lid and pop it open with a pot holder for another 5 minutes before I take the lid all the way off. Now, once I take the lid all the way off, I may or may not, depending on how hot it is down in there, go ahead and remove the jars. If I don't remove them right away, I will give them 5 to 10 more minutes. And the reason I open my canners that way, and I do it slowly, is to decrease the chances of siphoning. When you immediately take that weight off and then take those jars out, you run a really big risk of things siphoning and seeping out of the jars. And I say, if you've got the time, why not just do it slowly? I will do the same exact thing for this canner. When that time goes off, on this one, you just wait till the peg for the weight, I don't know what to call it, that thing, when it comes and rests on this metal post at 0, I will give it 5 to 10 more minutes, then take off the weight, 5 to 10 more minutes, open the canner, prop it open, 5 to 10 more minutes, then take the lid off. Same exact process. So this one's almost done, and when everything's nice and cooled off, we'll get it moved to the canning table. Oh, look, there's the timer now. We've got 1 minute. There we go, everyone. There are our 21 quarts of carrots. This, combined with what we have from last year, will carry us through another year. You guys, canning, it may take a little while. Oh, but it's so worth it. So worth it. You know what else is worth it? You being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope the video helped you and you picked up some helpful hints. So you guys, until we meet again, may you be blessed. Mwah! Love you guys. Bye-bye. One quick side note, it is good to give your jars some room to cool off. So give them a little space around each jar so the airflow can get through and your jars can cool off faster. I put mine close together just for the video, but I quickly took down the back things so that I could have more room to let my jars cool.